As I was filming clips for an upcoming video on a beautiful natural area in Southern California, I started narrating this clip about the local plants of the region. This bush behind me is called chamise, and this plant is part of the chaparral community. It's quite flammable, and this whole area is what you might call a fire-dependent or a fire-assisted ecosystem. But every 25 to 30 years, it could go up in flames. And that's why it's kind of a bad idea to build all these fancy homes up in the chaparral hills with all the manzanita and the chamise and the other plants, because they are so flammable. Chamise actually translates to dry brush, flame, or firewood. These plants burn very hot and very fast, and that makes it hazardous to build houses in this ecosystem. I had no idea how prophetic my words were to be. 4 days after I did that clip, the Palisades fire in the LA region broke out about 40 miles from where I was staying, and soon after, the Eaton fire near Altadena erupted just 19 miles from where I was. I left the day the first fire started.
Enter the apocalypse.
Apocalyptic scenes, tens of thousands on the run as homes and buildings burn to the ground.
I mean, this is what's so crazy. You can't even see the sun. It is completely blacked out. Flames are up about 30, 40 feet high. And, you hear pop, pop, pop. Sound like a war zone.
Would you think it wise to swim in a pool of gasoline with a lit cigarette? Yet this is the equivalent of what many people are doing in Southern California and many parts of the West, building structures in fire-prone ecosystems that are sure to eventually go up in flames. As of right now, there are over 5,000 structures burned and 25 people confirmed dead from the fires, and that number could certainly rise. 7 fires have charred over 40,000 acres, and it's not over yet. I have a friend who lives at the edge of the LA area, and her close friend lost her home and everything in it to the Eaton fire. She got the evacuation order and saved her 2 cats before her home went up in flames. In Southern California, chamise, manzanita, madrone, sagebrush, ceanothus, and other plants create what's called a chaparral community. Several of these plants depend on fire or another disturbance to crack their hard seeds to germinate. They've evolved with fire. When the plants burn, their deep roots are unaffected by the fires, and new life sprouts from the base of the plant. So, as I said in the video clip, it's a bad idea to build houses within this ecosystem, and yet the building continues. People can blame politicians all they want. Politicians can blame each other all they want. But the reality is that these catastrophes were created by money, greed, and corruption. Developers are money-driven sharks that look for easy prey. This is especially true of corporate developers building tract homes. They get in and slap them up and get out. They don't care that the people they sold the houses to are living in a fire-prone ecosystem, a ticking time bomb that could explode in years or decades. After the houses are built, developers aren't held accountable. Even if the public comes out in droves to hearings to protest developments in California, county supervisors and city planners approve projects not only against the will of the people, but against the advice of experts warning them of impending and seemingly imminent doom. California, it seems, has never met a subdivision proposal it didn't like. I know because many years ago I went to a few hearings. When 300 people say they don't want a massive subdivision and other development, and the only people in favor of it are the developers and their wives, and it still gets approved? Let's face it, people are easily corrupted. It doesn't matter what political stripe they are. And what's that new car in the driveway? I don't know if new cars appear as favors. I'm just saying. You get the idea. California, like much of the rest of the U.S., is all about short-term profits and making money, regardless of the consequences. Whether people want to believe it or not, there's enough evidence to suggest that the climate is changing. In the past, December through March in California were the wet months, a time when the hills transformed into a verdant green landscape. When I was a kid, having wildfires in winter was unheard of. Could this be the new normal? Look all across the western states and you'll see similar patterns. Every region of the West and western Canada has been charred by humongous wildfires in the past 10 years or so. When I traveled to the Yukon and Alaska and did videos about those places, I witnessed wildfires not just within a few miles of me, but while in the Yukon, right beside the road I was traveling on. Yes, even the Yukon and Alaska are not safe from the ravages of fire anymore. When I lived in Oregon, it seemed like the entire state was on fire one summer, and the fires continued burning well into October. For a time, the region where I lived had the worst air quality on Earth due to the smoke. There's been a long history of forest mismanagement in the West. Ever since logging began out west in the late 1800s, it has progressively gotten worse. For over 100 years, the forests of the West have been managed to benefit the timber and grazing interests with a policy of constant fire suppression. This has helped create the mega fires we see today. The Smokey the Bear campaign was so successful that it backfired. The fact is, fires are a natural and essential component of the environment. In the past, before people started building homes in every nook, small fires routinely swept through grasslands and forest, but their effect was one of a cleansing, burning off grass, small plants, and seedling trees, while the older, larger, and more resilient trees were, for the most part, unharmed. There have been some revised management practices put into action in the past couple decades. Thin the forest and remove dead wood from the ground in order to restore the woods to a more natural state and, in the process, make them less prone to fire. But it's probably a case of too little, too late. Southern California may be the future of the West, an apocalyptic inferno that can't be controlled. Think of the dying and drying trees of the Pacific Northwest, the Rocky Mountains, and British Columbia, Alberta, the Yukon, and Alaska. And think of the sagebrush and scrublands. There will be more fires and more destruction. Drought throughout the western portion of the continent has become an ongoing pattern, rather than just a passing event. We will rebuild, I hear them say. Maybe we need to have more common sense when considering the placement of houses and businesses and towns. Rebuild in the fire-prone ecosystems that surround them? They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. I think we've reached the point of insanity, and if we keep on like this, the point of no return. As I learned long ago, humans will never learn from their mistakes as long as there's a dollar to be made from repeating them. Humans have encroached into nearly every corner of the West, building homes within forests and scrublands, setting the stage for more devastation to people and property. The town of Jasper, Alberta, was nearly burned off the map by a recent fire.
Law enforcement making dozens of arrests for suspected looting. The LA County Sheriff with a stern warning for anyone trying to take advantage of this ongoing disaster.
Regarding any illegal activity that may be occurring in these areas, don't do it.
There were 4 more arrests yesterday, bringing the total number of looters to 39 in the Malibu and Pacific Palisades area.
Once considered a paradise, California now ranks as the worst state in the minds of many. Don't get me wrong, California still has beautiful places and wonderful people, but the state sold out on quality of life in order to make a quick buck. It's forever changed and will never again be the wonderful place it once was. Endless urbanization of the state has led to the loss of quality of life due to endless sprawl, horrendous traffic, crime, pollution, homelessness, and so on. With the aforementioned problems, along with prolonged drought, a changing climate, more severe weather patterns, and winds that reach hurricane force fueling fires, what's left is a hellish scene from the apocalypse. And as these forces shape the western portion of the continent, it's likely that other states and provinces will suffer the same fate as California. The entire West will be a tinderbox ready to ignite, and the results will be devastating. Just look around at the millions of acres of land burned in the past decade, and you'll see that the apocalypse is right here surrounding us. and it could be closing in at any time. When the rains eventually do come, there's a likelihood of mudslides, and there's already been a landslide that destroyed a house.
Right now, there are still 31 people reported missing after the wildfires. The death toll has now risen to 27. Now imagine returning home to find your home survived the fire but was severely damaged by a landslide.
This property is red tagged, which means it is not livable. I'm going to ask Assad Khalilzadeh to run our camera along the foundation, which is completely cracked. When he gets up to the top where the hedges are, he's going to tilt up because this home is completely split in half.
It's a 1-2 punch.
Stephen Edwards is talking about this, his Pacific Palisades home that survived the Palisades fire, only to be destroyed by a landslide. This 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot home was listed on Zillow as a rental just 2 months ago. Price $14,000 a month.
Death and destruction shouldn't be politicized. We should have empathy for those who lost their homes and for people who lost family members. This is an opportunity for people to help lift each other back up from the ashes of despair. It's a time when we should come together and be a shining example of our highest and best good toward one another, a time to display the best of humanity. I know many of you lost everything. I hope you can restore your lives to a semblance of normalcy soon. I have to admit, while I was working on this video and looking through all the news clips and seeing all the destruction and devastation and sorting through the images that I would use in this video and seeing all the pain and anguish on the faces of the people in those images, I got a little teary-eyed at times. My thoughts and heart go out to all of you who've been affected by the California wildfires. Most material possessions can be replaced, but people can never be. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll give me a like on the video, share, and subscribe. Till next time, this is a Rockhopper. I'll see ya.